Imagine walking through a city at night, surrounded by countless invisible radio waves, music, conversations, stories, all real yet unseen. Without a receiver tuned to the right channel, none of it reaches you. You could be standing right next to the signal you want and still hear only silence. That's exactly how the quantum field works. It's not about effort. It's about alignment. The reason your reality hasn't shifted might not be because you're doing something wrong. It could be that you're tuned to the wrong frequency. Your life right now, the people you meet, the opportunities that find you, the situations you face, is simply the station you're currently tuned to. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The quantum field isn't withholding anything. Everything you want already exists on another frequency. The real question isn't whether your desires are possible. It's whether your signal matches the version of you that already lives in that reality. Most people miss this. They try to create a new life using the same signal that built the old one. They visualize abundance while vibrating scarcity. They affirm love while broadcasting unworthiness. They write for clarity while radiating confusion. And when nothing changes, they think manifestation isn't working. But the truth is, it's working perfectly. The field is simply reflecting their most consistent broadcast. Not their daily intentions. Not their mood in the moment. Their signal. Physics tells us the quantum field is a sea of infinite potential. Every reality, every outcome, every possibility exists as probability waves. These waves collapse into form through the influence of the observer, a principle proven in quantum experiments for almost a century. So what determines how you influence the field? Not your conscious thoughts alone, not your vision boards. Your influence comes from your vibrational identity, the emotional and energetic state you live in most of the time. That's what collapses possibility into reality. So what frequency are you living from? Is it survival, fear, lack, control, performance, proving, striving, or presence, trust, knowing, coherence? Only one of these truly unlocks the quantum field. And it's not the one that pushes harder, but the one that aligns deeper. We've been taught to do more, hustle more, try harder. But the universe doesn't respond to what you do. It responds to what you are. Being is vibrational. It's not about acting as if, but feeling as if. That's what speaks to the field. That's what opens doors effort can't touch. And here's the key. You can't fake it. The field doesn't respond to performance. It responds to coherence. Coherence between heart and mind. Thought and emotion between who you say you are and how you truly feel. If your mind says, I believe, but your body feels, I'm not enough, the field mirrors the stronger signal. And that's almost always the emotional one. Why? Because emotion carries frequency. It's your energetic fingerprint, and it never lies. That's why positive thinking alone doesn't work. That's why scripting your dream life won't manifest it if you still feel undeserving. That's why speaking affirmations while secretly doubting yourself creates static. The signal isn't clear, and the field doesn't respond to static. In the next segment, we'll decode what a clear frequency actually feels like. We'll explore why it's not intensity but subtlety that unlocks the field. Why it's not willpower but surrendered coherence that causes reality to collapse into form. And why the most powerful signal you can emit often appears silent to the world, yet sings loudly to the universe. Most people believe the field responds to their intentions, but that's only half the truth. Intentions are the spark, but the fire is the frequency. If your internal energy is unstable, your desires bounce off reality like a poorly aligned signal. The quantum field doesn't collapse for what you want in theory. It collapses for what you are consistently being. And consistency isn't about daily rituals. It's about emotional gravity, the steady pull of your inner state. It's about whether the version of you that exists right now is broadcasting alignment or contradiction. This is where the concept of the resonance threshold comes in, the critical point in frequency tuning where your energy becomes stable enough to pull the new reality into form. Below that threshold, the field hesitates and mirrors your old status quo. Above it, reality starts bending. The shift doesn't happen because you worked harder. Happens because your signal became clear enough to be heard. And clarity isn't found in force. It's found in embodiment. When what you feel, think, and do vibrates in harmony, coherence is born. Coherence acts like a beam of light cutting through the noise. When you reach your resonance threshold, you don't have to push or chase. You simply are, and the field bends to that state, not to the drama you once carried. Imagine waking up in abundance, not because your bank account changed overnight, but because your internal landscape did. You choose generosity over scarcity. You pause when doubt whispers. You breathe into trust. You respond from presence. You aren't forcing alignment. You're allowing it to live through you. That is true resonance. Now, picture someone else who says all the right words, but still operates from old patterns. They might experience brief flashes of alignment, synchronicity here, a small win there. But the moment resistance returns, their frequency collapses, the field resets, and they slip back into the loop. They wonder why manifestation feels inconsistent. That inconsistency isn't failure. It's evidence of frequency drift. While intention fires the arrow, coherence is what holds your aim. And that's why success is never tied to raw effort. It's tied to energetic precision. Energetic precision isn't about rearranging your outer life. It's about transforming your inner world, fully that the external can't help but reflect it. You don't collapse a new timeline by building bigger dreams. You collapse it by becoming the frequency of the version of you who already lives there. So what does that frequency actually feel like? It's not adrenaline. It's not excitement. It's not the emotional high you get after a visualization or affirmation. Those are beautiful moments, but they're not sustainable. The field isn't impressed by spikes of energy. It responds to sustained vibration, the quiet, consistent hum of coherence. And that hum often feels like stillness. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means no longer broadcasting internal contradiction. It means your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system are no longer pulling in opposite directions. Your mind isn't obsessing over outcomes while you're for a sport, heartaches with doubt. Your actions aren't trying to prove worthiness. In this frequency, there is nothing to prove, nothing to chase, only something to embody. And that embodiment is magnetic. From a scientific perspective, this is called psychophysiological coherence. When your brain and heart rhythms synchronize, your body enters a harmonious state where stress dissolves and clarity sharpens. According to research from the HeartMath Institute, this coherence amplifies your electromagnetic field, influencing not just your own biology, but the space around you. Your body becomes a transmitter, and the signal is clean. From a spiritual perspective, this is where surrender meets intention. You still hold the vision, but you no longer need it to validate your worth. You stop needing, not because you've given up, but because you've remembered. You've remembered that everything already exists, and your role isn't to plead with the field, but to tune into the version of you who is already living the outcome. When that happens, your presence shifts. Your aura stabilizes. Your timeline responds. You stop reacting to circumstances, stop scanning the external world for proof. Stop trying to impress the field. And ironically, that's when evidence starts to appear, because you're no longer interfering with the broadcast. You're holding the note, and holding that note is what collapses the wave into form. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument. If you're even slightly off, the melody feels dissonant. But when you're in tune, everything flows, not because you're playing louder, but because you're playing in harmony. That harmony is what the quantum field locks onto. It becomes the bridge between probability and physical experience. And here's something rarely discussed. When you're in this frequency, you stop craving the manifestation itself, not because you've let it go, but because you're already saturated in the emotional state it was meant to bring you. You've collapsed the distance. You've dissolved the gap. And when the gap disappears, so does time. This is the paradox of quantum alignment. The less you need, the more you receive. The less you chase, the more arrives. The less you try to prove, the more the field responds. So let's take it deeper. If you already are the version of yourself who lives in your next reality, how do you walk, breathe, speak, and respond? Because true frequency isn't something you think about, it's something you live from. Embodied frequency is where intention stops being a concept and becomes your operating system. Ask yourself, if you were already living in your chosen timeline, how would you wake up tomorrow? How would you move through the day? What would your inner voice sound like? How would your nervous system feel in your body? This is the gap most people never cross. They imagine their future self, but keep waking up as their past self, rehearsing lack, replaying failure, reliving resistance, while trying to force a manifestation from a signal that says, I don't have it. Yet the quantum field doesn't respond to language. It decodes states. And your state is broadcasting every moment you exist. You don't get what you want, you get what you signal. Wanting is passive. Broadcasting is active. You're either transmitting coherence or contradiction. And the difference is subtle, but transformative. The version of you who already has what you desire isn't just doing different things, they're being different. They trust instead of grasp. They flow instead of force. Their nervous system is relaxed, not because they've won, but because they've stopped chasing. The most powerful shift happens when you stop visualizing your future from the outside and start living it from the inside. You stop asking for things to come and start showing up as the version who already has them. That's when reality stops resisting, because you're no longer pushing, you're resonating. So how do you live this now? Keep it simple. Speak only as what aligns. Breathe into your future, not your fear. Let your posture carry certainty. Let your choices reflect abundance. Let your inner dialogue shift from, I hope it works, to, this is who I am now. And when doubt returns, as it inevitably will, don't argue with it, don't fear it. Just breathe. Return to the frequency. Coherence isn't about perfection. It's about returning again and again to the signal. Because the universe doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. Every time you come back to the frequency of your aligned self, you strengthen the signal. And when the signal stabilizes, reality has no choice but to respond. Here's your micro practice. Upon waking, what frequency am I tuning into today? Before speaking, ask, does this reflect my desired state before acting? Simultra. Am I moving from alignment or survival? Anchor this energy now. Comment, I am tuned in. Not as a request, but as a declaration. As an activation. Let the act of stating it reinforce your broadcast. Because the real test of frequency isn't how high you vibrate during a meditation, or how empowered you feel after a video. The real test is how steadily you hold your signal when reality begins contradicting your new timeline. And make no mistake, that moment will come. Not as punishment, but as confirmation that you've moved. Imagine tuning into a new radio station. As you move away from the old one, static interrupts the clarity. That doesn't mean the new frequency isn't real. It just means your receiver hasn't fully stabilized. That's static. Your fears, triggers, doubts, and disappointments are simply echoes of the version of you that's fading. What you do in that static determines how quickly you anchor your new timeline. Most people panic when the old reappears. They think it means they've gone backward. They collapse into disappointment, which is simply a collapse in frequency. But here's the shift. When your new signal is strong enough, those old echoes don't destabilize you, they confirm you. You see them for what they are: residue, feedback, the inertia of the previous self. Nothing more. That's why spiritual alignment isn't about avoiding contrast. It's about remaining unchanged by it. Not because you're suppressing emotion, but because your frequency has matured. You've become the tuning fork instead of the chaser. You emit the tone and reality bends. That's quantum leadership. So how do you hold that frequency in real life? You ground it in rituals. You reinforce it through identity. You create environments, internal and external, that stabilize your signal. Here's what that looks like. Energetic check-ins, several times a day. Close your eyes for 30 seconds and ask, what am I broadcasting right now? No judgment, just awareness. Awareness creates feedback, and feedback creates mastery. Vibrational anchors. Choose one or two phrases that instantly return you to your aligned self. Examples. I already am. The field responds to me. I am the signal. Whisper them. Live them. Pattern interrupts. When the old emotional wave rises, fear, grasping, panic, don't suppress it. Breathe into it. Witness it. Then shift. Not forcefully, just gently. One coherent breath can reset your frequency. Environment optimization. Align your physical space with your state. Music, lighting, order, scents. These are frequency modifiers. Create a physical resonance chamber for your inner vibration. Coherent choices. Every action you take is a declaration of identity. Let your behavior reflect your new frequency, not your old fear. Move as the person who already lives the shift. And most importantly, stop needing reality to prove your progress. The moment you wait for signs, you fall out of signal. The moment you monitor for evidence, you create delay. The quantum field doesn't need performance. It needs remembrance. Remember who you are and why you're no longer available for static. You don't stabilize your frequency by controlling the world. You stabilize it by mastering your signal, by choosing your tone and refusing to let the external dictate your inner note. This is vibrational sovereignty. When your signal becomes unshakable, something extraordinary happens. Letting go becomes effortless. What you were chasing begins to chase you. You stop reaching, rehearsing, or needing to manipulate anything. Reality stops being something you try to control and becomes something you dance with. The effort dissolves. The striving fades. All that remains is presence. Not the presence of waiting, but the presence of already having. This is the moment your manifestation arrives. But ironically, you're no longer watching the door, checking the clock. You're not asking when, because you've become the version of you who no longer waits. You live in the now as if it already is. And when that happens, the field, as if responding to a signal it can no longer ignore, mirrors your new timeline with uncanny precision. Here's the part most won't tell you. The actual moment of manifestation is anticlimactic, not because it's small, but because you already felt it long before it arrived. It doesn't shock you. It matches you. It's not a surprise, it's a reflection. You don't scream, you nod, because your frequency arrived first. This is vibrational mastery. The quantum field responds to frequency, not fantasy, to coherence. Raving eye. When you emit a clear, consistent signal, not for a